those who don't speak Hungarian, I prepared in English. You may be the only one, but... So just a quick reflection on the previous presentations, how we live and use technology and everything else, and how quick our life became. It happened last Friday when I received a chat on Messenger from Balázs asking me to present here today. So he didn't give me more than 5 days to prepare and present. And that happened on a Facebook Messenger. He didn't call me. I don't even think you know my phone number. So that is how we live today. And we agreed on the topic and we agreed on everything over technology. And when we agreed on what I'm going to present today, I was thinking that, oh my God, this is not an easy topic. This is not some fancy topic, what we all talk about recently in HR and in recruiting. And how can I tell the audience and give the audience the ultimate answer and solution for building recruiting strategy and building a recruiting team, regionally, locally, whatever your role is. So I realized, thinking about my whole career, that there is no one solution. There is no one size fits all. So what I thought, that instead of trying to give you the solution that will work for everybody, for every company, I'm going to talk about my experience, how I approach this question when I'm facing the challenge and the situation that I need to build a strategy, regardless of the industry, regardless of the company, and your scope as well. So this is basically my experience. This is my thought process of how I approach these two questions. So what do you need to consider, or what do I consider when I need to build a strategy, right? One area is that I always look at is, what is my role, my organization's role, my TA organization's role in the overall company? Okay, we all complain in TA, right, that the business doesn't seem to be accepting us as a partner at the table, at the decision table. We are mainly and strictly execution focused, right? It happens a lot. There are companies where TA, as part of HR, is already there and early on informed on what are the projects, what is the headcount plan. But in many organizations, you don't have that, right? In many organizations, you only know about the project and the positions and the headcounts. What you need to recruit for is when they actually already opened in your system, if you have a system, right? And the other thing that I also look at, what is the company profile and what is the company's operating margin? Because that can limit you, or that can give you a lot of opportunity for creating something new, or basically give you a sense of your budget, right? And what you can focus on. Do you need to build on your existing internal sources and solutions and resources, or maybe you need to build one? Or you can think about bigger and involve RPO or use agencies because you have more budget to use. So these are two very important things that I usually start with. And then it's also important, what is your brand, right? We all want to work for those companies where candidates just come to you and you don't have to do anything extra, right? And if you ever talk to those companies that you think that their job is very easy because everybody is coming to them and they don't have to do sourcing, they don't struggle to find the best candidate, they would tell you exactly the opposite. Everybody has their own challenges. But it still makes a big difference whether you need to be very proactive, you need to attract people, you need to sell your company, and your recruiters need to spend a lot of time in spelling the company, or you have relevant applications, because we all get applications, they're just not relevant. And then, last but not least, and the list is not full, and this is not everything what you need to consider. I just try to emphasize on the most important things, what I found the most important things, is what are your supporting programs and tools? Do you actually have them? Or you need to build them? You need to build everything from scratch. Do you have an ATS? Do you have a CRM? Do you have an employee referral program in place? Or you need to build it, you need to buy it. What are your sourcing channels and tools, right? Does your recruiter have a recruiting license on LinkedIn? Do you have database access? Or they need to be very, very creative, right? What is the focus in your company? Do you focus on internal recruiting and give the opportunity, first of all, to internal people and develop your talent? Or the focus is really on bringing people in externally? Do you even have a succession planning program in place? Some companies, you know, many companies do, first of all, develop their talent and look internally first before they go outside. This is all very important before you can shape your strategy. And then, if you considered all that, then you have a lot of more things to consider, right? So what you need to be and keep in mind as well, not just the previous ones, but whatever you build, regardless of the size of your organization, hold on, just a second. Yeah, that's the good one. So regardless of your industry and the size of your organization, you know, you need to be building a flexibility within your team, the diverse team where you can reallocate the resources, you can flexibly meet the business requirements while still providing consistency. There is no worse than the business feeling that it's always somebody else they need to talk to, you don't have a stable structure, it's always different, right? They need stability within your processes, within your teams, and everything else what you provide to them. And then it's also very important that you talk to your managers and you get them understand their own responsibility in the recruiting process, right? That's another area we all, recruiters, we all complain about, that when hiring managers open a position and they expect you to fill it, they don't do anything else. They think that just because they got the approval, their job is done, right? And they don't have to be, you know, part of it, apart from interviewing sometimes when they are available, which happens quite a lot that they are not, right? So you need to be, and you are the one in the position to influence them, to talk to them, to explain to them that if they are part of it, they are using their own social network, they are using their LinkedIn account, they're using their connections on LinkedIn to promote the job, and they give their face to actually looking for people in their own team. The response rate actually is much higher than when a recruiter is reaching out to people. Katrina is nodding, heavily nodding. So it's very important. It doesn't happen a lot. I've seen very good experiences when hiring managers and interviewers were absolutely willing and ready to share and talk to people and be the first one to reach out to them. And I saw hiring managers who said, I'm not going to create a LinkedIn profile. Exactly. Yeah. So this is also important, and it takes time, right? It's a mindset change. It's a cultural change in how hiring managers actually think. But it's your role to change them. The other thing is, I don't like the word pipeline recruiting, but lack of anything better I could find. I put it here that do pipeline recruiting. What I mean by pipeline recruiting is not that start talking to people and telling people, I may or may not have a job for you in 6 months' time and 1 year time, right? That doesn't work. That doesn't give the good candidate experience that Katrine's been talking about, right? You start talking to people, you tell them you have a job, they get interested in your company, they get interested in the opportunity, and then nothing ever happens. So what's going to happen? You end up on Glassdoor, right, with a bad rating. So what I mean by pipeline recruiting is that continuously increase your talent pool. You don't need to talk to them, you don't need to reach out to them, but when you have time as a recruiter, your rack load may be lower, or or you have less work to do outside of your day-to-day recruiting as well. Just build your talent pool. Use different technology, come up with different ideas, brainstorm within the team how we can increase the talent pool. And we already have, because we all know what type of positions we typically recruit for. We all know what are the most difficult positions to fill, what we always need candidates for. And when those jobs come in and they are live and they are real, then you can reach out to these people and actually you can provide them something real. And if you already have a talent pipeline, talk to them, keep in touch with them, ask them to recommend people. So it's very important that you don't talk to people once, right, during a recruiting process, but you build a relationship. And then we already talked about, the best-in-class candidate experience. Providing that, it's not easy. It's very, very difficult because people have their own expectations, and it could be different in different industries, different professions. People, some people don't like if you call them, right? I prefer chatting. Balázs knows that. And that's what we do. We don't pick up the phone. Especially we don't pick up the phone if there is no caller ID, right? I never do that. I never pick up the phone if there is no phone number. And to be honest, I don't even pick up the phone if I don't know the phone number. If you want to reach me and you are not in my contact list, send me a text message. And then I can decide whether I want to talk to you or I don't want to talk to you. So these are very important small things, but makes a difference in the candidate experience. And then the other thing that is, again, very hard, especially if you work for a large company, right? And if you are covering multiple countries, multiple regions, the consistent methodology for assessing the candidates, right? How many times you heard from candidates who went through several interviews and they told you as the recruiter, because they already trust you and feel that they can give you real feedback and true feedback. Okay, I met 5 people, they all asked the same thing. It was so boring and they had no idea about what I've done before and nobody read my CV, right? So it's very important that what I've seen working in my many, many years, which is more than 20 years now. He was trying to make me younger with the 19 years. That one thing that definitely works is the behavior-based interviewing. Most companies already use it or planning to use it because that is something that you can prepare for. You can prepare with questions. You can get together with the interviewing team. And everybody can have the certain areas what they want to assess, whether that's soft skills or technical skills, anything. But it's very important that everybody knows their role in the interview process. And if they have the questions, and we know that for each candidate, we're going to assess the same thing, the leadership traits or any kind of personality traits, then you can compare apple to apple and not ask different questions from all the candidates, because then at the end, you're not going to be able to make a decision. I've seen it so many times that hiring managers interviewed multiple candidates, and then at the end of the all interviews, they realized, oh, I didn't ask this question from that candidate, or I didn't ask the other question from candidate B. How are you going to compare them if you are not consistently assessing them, asking the same question? And then again, very important, data, right? So these two are linked, not next to each other, but linked. So measure your data, but don't create SLAs and KPIs and reports and everything else and put these on your recruiters and put in front of the business if they don't need it, right? We don't need data. We don't need to do administration just for the sake of it. If the business is interested in something, then you build it in your process. If they are not interested, why spend time on it? Why waste your time? When your recruiters should be recruiting and talking to people, they will be doing a lot of administration, so just so you can measure things, and nobody ever gonna look at those data, right? Or those KPIs or SLAs. And then you also need to measure what works, what doesn't work, right? So you don't use a job advertisement forever if it doesn't bring any candidates. You need to measure the result of each and every tool you use and actions you take. And then, again, going back to hiring managers, now talking about it, it seems like I have a lot of problem with my hiring managers over the years, because I keep putting them, you know, put things on them, what we need to teach them. Educate them, right? Educate them on the market, educate them on what is possible, what is not possible, what is realistic, what is not realistic. Again, I can refer to Catherine's presentation. I didn't know what you were going to talk about, but it's great that it's all aligned, that how many times we've seen that hiring managers in the most impossible location want to find something which doesn't exist in that country, right? Or in that location, and they don't want to pay, and they want somebody with the senior experience, but junior and very cheap. So we need to educate them. The other thing that we shouldn't forget, that is not always and only about their unrealistic expectations, but it also comes from not being experienced, right? Not all hiring managers are recruiting all the time. They may recruited a long time ago, and they think about the experience they had back 2 years ago or whatever. They don't know that the market changed. They don't know that the salaries changed, right? Or they don't know how to talk to candidates and what to expect from candidates now. And then another very important thing is being a brand ambassador, right? If you are not active on, you know, on social media, you are not the face and of your company, and you are not representing your company, your recruiting strategy cannot work, right? It's very important in modern days, right, 2019, that your brand has to be something that you want it to be, and you need to work on it. And you need to work on it, obviously the company, but every single person who's part of the recruiting process has to be part of it. You are representing the company, and you are the one, the candidate. When the candidate go away, right, and they are going to talk about the company, they're not going to say that X, Y, Z was this and that, but that company, right? They will not remember your name or your face. They will talk about the company, and the experience came from you personally. So with all that, considering what to think about when you are, or before you are building your strategy, or when you need to build a new one, right? It's also important that, you know, that your strategy and how you build your team is always, always different, right? I've been in situations where I didn't change job, I didn't change company, but my scope changed. And I needed to build a new strategy because it was a bigger scope or a smaller scope or a different geographical coverage. And I had to think it over and over again. Right? I thought when I first did it, okay, I nailed it, this is going to work all the time. No, it didn't. Right? I didn't even change job, and I had to start thinking again. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Otherwise, it would be so easy. We could all work part-time. So when you build a team, it's very, very similar on your thinking process is, again, very similar to when you think about your strategy, right? You need to think about not just how much money you have, not just, you know, what tools you have and everything else, but what is the size and the complexity of the organization the team is supporting, right? Are you supporting one location, for example, geographical coverage as well, and language skills, right? It's very important because if you are covering multiple countries, and in those countries, let's say English is not a requirement for every role, that will decide on how you build your team. And also, you know, the complexity, how many different types of positions you are working on. What are the typical jobs that you need to recruit for? There are so many jobs that everybody wants to, different professions everybody wants to hire, right? You are one of a million companies who go after, I don't know, engineers, IT people. They can pick and choose. So you need to keep in mind all these during thinking about how you build, rebuild, restructure your team. And then also the ideal requisition to recruitment ratio is very different, right? We all say the ideal is around 15, but I've heard somebody telling me it's 30, others tell me it's 10, because it depends on the type of job and how many different type of profiles the recruiter is working on. Is that position is in high demand in that location or in that country where you're recruiting, or it's, let's say, easy to fill? I don't think that exists anymore, the easy to fill positions, but still, there are positions easier to fill than others. And then you need to also think about if you have the choice and what is the company structure in terms of can you or do you want to build a centralized team or a decentralized team, or you already have the type of structure within your company where there are the HRBPs and then the center of excellence functions, right? What you need to think about centralized versus decentralized, for example, is that if you have a centralized team, that has its benefits and it has the negatives as well, all of them has, right? If your team is centralized, then it's easier to share information, to keep the market intelligence in-house, to have the consistent processes and SLAs. But at the same time, it's more difficult to build that trust and relationship with the business than when your recruiters are decentralized and sitting in the office where they recruit for, and they are working very closely together with the hiring managers. And then again, I haven't even talked about language skills, right? Because if you have a centralized team and you are covering Europe, right, you may need a team who's, coming from different universities with multiple languages. And then also think about whether you already have the structure within the company to get support, right? Is it gonna be your recruiters doing everything, which is recruiting related, all the scheduling, all the administration, campus recruiting, branding, right? We see branding coming under TA now more and more, right? It used to be part of marketing. Now it's the recruiter's job to do the branding. And then back to the tools and the technology available in your company, or what you need to build or buy or implement. Okay, and then with all that, this is not going to be a surprise for anybody, because this is what we all have as options, right? We don't have too many more options than this. This is only about internal team. I didn't think about it because otherwise the list would be much longer. If I was thinking about, other blended models with internal recruiters and RPO solution and everything else, I was just focusing on what solutions we can have depending on all the others, what I mentioned, for our recruiting team structure or restructure, right? And also keep in mind what I said at the beginning, that you need to be able to build a diverse team where you can reorganize and redeploy your resources, and at the same time provide a consistent service to the business. So you can have, depending on your recruiters and the requirements, you can have end-to-end recruiters who do everything, right? Sourcing till closing the candidate. I know it's less and less preferred, right, by recruiters as well as everybody else, but sometimes you don't have any other choices than the recruiters doing the sourcing as well as the candidate and the hiring manager management. And then you have the sourcer recruiter model, which is more, I think, more typical in the last 10 years, I believe, at least. And then you also need to think about, depending on, again, everything else what I was talking about in the last 15 or 20 minutes, do you need generalists, right? And it's not the preference of yours, it's how you can serve the business the best. Do you need generalist recruiters who are focusing on certain business segments, for example, or geographical locations, and anything that comes up in that segment or in that country or whatever, or that region, they will do it? Or you're gonna have specialized recruiters that, again, you need to know how many different type of positions you have and what type of positions, because you may have a blended model of some of your recruiters are generalist, some of them are specialized for a certain profession. And then again, going back to the centralized, decentralized question, you can have your recruiters providing local support to the business and the hiring managers, and also you can have a centralized team, and then they will be remote. Nobody likes remote, right? Especially if you are changing from local to remote, and you are centralizing a team. My experience is the hiring managers do anything and everything to go around you and not to work with you, because they don't like it. They like having the direct contact with the recruiter, and they will do literally anything and everything not to work with you. But you have to be very, very insistent. It's not easy to change the structure, and it's not easy to build something from scratch. But at the end of the day, your goal is to support the business and come up with the best possible solution that will work for the business. Thank you. Köszönöm.